Hi, everybody. My name is Andrea Pocket. I am president and co-founder of Stigma-Free Mental Health Society. I am so excited to have you here today to watch our Stigma-Free Voices podcast. And I am joined by Adam Tanaka, and I'm super excited as he has some amazing mental health experiences, topics. And Adam, where are you coming in from today?
Hello, I am coming in from Asheville, North Carolina.
Nice. So we have another American guest, which we love. Send in love from Canada. And I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to start off. I want to give a little plug, though, first and foremost, for Stigma-Free's our rural peer support training that's coming up June 8th and 15th. If people want to register, I highly recommend it to learn peer support skills to support people with their mental health. Enough about that. And now I'm going to get into Adam's bio, and then we're going to ask him some questions. Does that sound okay, Adam?
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So I really love your bio. Adam Tanaka is a relentless optimist, founder, serial entrepreneur, like that, TEDx and keynote speaker. He's dedicated to redefining success through creativity, play, and purposeful leadership. As a disruptor of burnout culture, he challenges traditional ideas of success by showing that creative energy fuels meaningful impact. And after building and selling his first company of 17 years, Adam shifted focus to Cavehouse Supply, his kids' brand that empowers confidence and creativity through a storytelling app, monthly magazine, video series, and community experiences. In his speaking and advisory work, Adam helps founders, leadership teams, and companies rediscover unstructured play as a catalyst for creativity, collaboration, and prioritizing mental well-being while champion change. Joe, I said that all wrong. I was almost there perfectly. And this is live. See what happens?
It was perfect. Oh my gosh.
That's okay. We're all human, even me. So yes, he likes to champion change at every stage of growth for other people. So I am super excited to talk about your perspectives and everything that you're passionate about. And I was wondering, so let's go back to your childhood and share what it was like growing up with a parent who struggled with depression and attempted suicide. So how did that shape your understanding of mental health from such a young age?
Well, I think I didn't really know what was going on. I remember, my mom, who was, constantly I just remember just constantly sleeping all the time or crying, moaning. And I remember as a kid going, just stop doing that, please. Like, just all you got to do is just stop, like thinking it was that simple. And so the alternative was processing it through going outside of my home and hiding in a row of bushes by my house and just pretending that I was in this unknown magical world, just to kind of not have to deal with the noise in the home. And so, that was my way to process it, because my dad worked all the time because we grew up poor, and he had to do what he had to do. And so yeah, that was kind of my way of answering the call to navigate that as a kid, is just to escape through, I guess, through playing and imagining, but survival or something.
Yeah. Oh, I know how powerful it is for kids, and even myself, like when you were talking about that escape into the imaginary world, right? And as children, we have so much creativity within us. I used to dream, imagine, and I swear it's real to this day, of being on the golf course, the mini putts, and I would go there, and it was an abandoned one, and I would be on a magic carpet. And that was my escape. So I really,
Whoa.
yeah. So I really, really identify with you. And so when you're processing all of that as a kid, What did support or the lack of it look like for you? Were there like adult systems or resources perhaps that helped you navigate this?
I wish that I had something that I did have there. I didn't though, for a while, into teenage years. I think it was not until, I guess my sister, she's 6 years younger than me. So after she was born and walking and kind of processing and doing, little kid things as well, I was able to shift my focus to making sure she was okay, because, a mother and a daughter, and mother wasn't there for the daughter, and so I guess that I filled that hole, that gap, with just making sure she was good, doing what needed to be done. But then music, I started playing music as a teenager, and I think that was the support, for sure, was just escaping through music, and playing.
Yeah. So you started playing drums at like 11 and were in bands by 14, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So what role did music play for you in creative expression? Like helping you cope during those teenage years? Like how did it help? What was it like?
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in the 90s, so I'm still obsessed with that decade, but I think it was one of those where, in the 90s, music was loud and good. And so I think that was, my time to be around other creators, in a small space, and just being able to it was not productive. Truly, it was just creating for the sake of creating. And we could go on all day on one riff. And I think that that's what made it so magical, is that you get lost in that kind of thing as a musician. And especially when you don't have anything coming up, like a tour or a record or anything, and you're just rehearsing or writing, the sky's the limit. And being able to go there, that was just, on a whole other level, I think.
Yeah. And it's so wonderful, like thinking of music, you say the 90s was loud, but 80s was even better. So that was how I love that classic rock 80s. My dad raised me on that, and we'd listen in the Buick Century 77, our car. So amazing.
I can smell that memory. I can
the smoke. Yeah, no, for sure. And I love digging into in this podcast, like on Stigma-Free Voices, like talking about the experiences growing up and how it shapes us, right? Because you went on to build your first company from nothing in your mid-20s, and you grew it over 17 years. And that company was recently acquired last March of 2025. So at what point did the identity of a founder start to take over your identity as a person? And when did you first notice something was breaking?
Yeah. So this was, I think it was year 6. You make it past that 4 or 5 year mark, and you're like, yes, okay, did it, keep going. But at that time, it wasn't really a celebration. I was so buried in the business that, I wasn't able to see straight. And it got to a point where, at that year 6, at that point in my life, year 6 of the business, I was making the most money I've ever made. I had, just an incredible production area with the company with that company. Everything was moving and shaking, growing. Revenue was awesome, but I was not sleeping, barely eating, and I'm already skinny. And, and I was isolating. I just escaped into isolation, thinking that I was the only one going through this kind of thing. And so it really was, one night in year 6 that, I remember it was October 2014 that I had made the decision to end it in my life. I couldn't do it anymore. And to me, that decision made sense. I know it might sound crazy to some, but that decision just made sense. And I wasn't upset about that decision. I had done what I thought needed to be done. I scheduled some automated emails to some specific clients, I wrote 2 letters, and then, but the thing is like, right as everything was kind of transpiring, I get a loud knock at the back door, and it was my best friend in the world. He showed up at night to just see what I was up to, and if I wanted to get a drink. And so I think it was that night that made me realize, that obviously that was not the answer, and that there are ways to come out of your, I guess, your rock bottom. You would call it your rock bottom moment. And so, yeah, that was it. Year 6 changed everything in the worst and the best ways. So I got help, and I came out of that understanding like what I needed to do. And the help that I got was a week in a place called On-Site Workshops. And that's where I rediscovered play as and Kid Adam and inner child work. And that kind of changed everything.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story so vulnerably and honestly. And, yeah, I understand. I don't have your exact experience, but I too tried to end my life when I was 25. And so I don't know if you feel the same way, but I just felt like nothing was going to change.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And it's beautiful that your friend reached out to you at the right time, and you're living proof that shows people things do change, right? And there's transformation. 100%. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So after surviving that crisis, how did your relationship with work, success, self-worth change? And how long did it actually take before it really started to change?
It was a slow process for sure. I think that's really, that moment was when I was first introduced to therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. And that started instilling a lot of confidence in me from a personal standpoint of like, oh my gosh, there are actual tools to navigate these different things, because this is like a daily thing. And I have a wonderful therapist. And so giving me those tools every week, every other week, being able to take that and integrate that into my life, being able to kind of, shift my energy, recognize the things that I was avoiding or just pushing back before. I was able to welcome it and see it. And I think, but that took years of work. And of course, like during that work, like it's not perfect at all. And sometimes it's the complete opposite, where you feel yourself kind of coming back to that darkness again. And so that absolutely happened more times than I can count. But, and I thought too, when the business was acquired last year, that, okay, this is a time for celebration. This is a time for high-fiving, running around, and it was kind of like, who am I at that point? It was like, I don't know who I am. And the identity was so ingrained and wrapped up. That was the biggest piece that I never worked through, was the identity piece. And so we just we went out of the country, went to Montreal, and then we flew to Iceland in June of last year. And that's kind of where everything, that's where the thing just kind of shifted completely, and put me on a road that I never thought was even, you could even go there. And it was the best thing ever, and came back with such clarity and focus. It was insane. And
wow.
Yeah.
It's great. And so when did you do your TEDx talk?
That was last September 2025.
How exciting is that? How recent is that? And how did that come about first and foremost? I'd love
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, totally. So, it was like last year I was writing a lot on LinkedIn, but I started focusing on Kid Adam, inner child play, creativity a lot more in the writing. And there was one person in particular who was kind of following along throughout. And sometimes, you feel like you're writing into the abyss, and it's okay. You do it for you. But this person, her name was Amanda, or is Amanda. She reached out to me, and she oversees the TEDx back in Nashville. It's the Old Hickory, TEDx Old Hickory. And she reached out. She said, "Hey, do you want to go grab some lunch? I would love to catch up." And we did. And she asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I, without thought and question, I said, yes. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. My partner, Kelsey, even reminded me when I came home and told her, she was like, "Do you remember 9 years ago on our first date where you said one of your goals is to do a TEDx talk?" And I was like, "No, I don't remember that. That's amazing." And so Amanda asked me to do it. I said, "Heck yeah, let's go." And it took, I think I had 3 weeks to prepare and did it. Yeah. Memorized it, got up there, did it.
Yeah. I love it. That's so good. And so you had a topic around play, and it's a core philosophy in your life and your work, and regardless of profession for people, right? So for people who hear that about play, and it could be a philosophy of our life, it sounds so nice, but is it really realistic? And what would you say to those people?
Yeah, no, I love that question because I hear it so much. But the thing is like, I think, we think of play as a kid with our toys and getting in the mud and doing all the things. But I think as an adult, for me, it's just disconnecting from the busyness of life for a minute and shifting your energy and making space for that creativity, for that joy, that connection. And for example, I was talking to someone not long ago. He was asking me about my TEDx talk, and he broke down in tears, and we were talking through it. And he was an older man, and he was like, I've gone my entire life, not knowing what to do here. And he said it was the first time a couple of weeks ago where I went to a museum and I got lost in this artwork on the wall. And he said, for me, that was my play, just getting lost in this artwork and just feeling every emotion that was coming up and just embracing it and recognizing it. And that's it. It doesn't have to be go out and climb a tree or, go for a swim. The most unproductive you can be, the better, and so, simply that.
Love it. So true. Everything's so tied to productivity and impact and demonstration of productivity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like slowing down. Like that's so good for your mental health. Like just being able to disconnect and be and get out of the rat race, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I love that. Like, thanks for the reminder. So what led you to create Cavehouse Supply? And why did you focus specifically on children's creativity, confidence, and their emotional well-being?
Cavehouse pretty much came about because of my childhood and the trauma and knowing I was not the only kid, and I am not, that has to go through things like that. And I think that initially I started Cavehouse as a way to reconcile with my kid self, which then kind of morphed into something that parents and educators were coming up to me and saying, like, where did this come from? This is so needed at our home, in our classroom, in our, in our groups. And so it took a while to wrap my brain around what exactly it could be, but it took about, the last year and a half is when everything clicked. And because kids are the best. They're cooler than any adult I've ever met. And, I get so much inspiration from them. A lot of my friends have kiddos, and I'm either Uncle Adam or Mr. Adam. And it's one of those where Cavehouse was completely inspired by all of those kids. The name Cavehouse even came from one of my best friend's son. He used to call my little garage that I worked out of back in the day, the Cavehouse. And I said, well, that's the company name right there.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And it's like taking your creativity, your entrepreneurship heart, right? Like, and that founder energy, but putting it into something like this is very special, very different, and seems, I love it. I love it. And like, you know, so Story Space, I know, is a kids powered storytelling app. And then you have the Optimist Adventure Club magazine, the At the Table video series, and live events and experiences for families. So walk me through what you're building and why this kind of multi-touch approach matters.
Well, so each one of those is very, very intentional. I think starting with the magazine, the analog physical piece, that's important now more than ever, I think. Plus, again, a 90s kid. So having that kind of, I grew up with Highlights magazine. And so it's like here in the States. And so it's like, having that tactile piece that you can go to that's just full of activities, adventures, and getting lost in the pages. And then the kid storytelling app, it's kid powered. Kids write their own stories, and Story Space is specifically for kids who see and feel the world differently. So who are neurodivergent or highly imaginative. So a lot of kids who are on the spectrum, autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, OCD, these kids, they might not really be able to verbally express how they're feeling. And so for me, throughout my years of being an entrepreneur and being in that world, it's like you find that storytelling is everything. If you can tell a good story, chances are you're a good communicator. And if you can communicate really well, you can kind of conquer the world. And I think that, like, for me, it makes sense to start with kids, and Cavehouse is specifically for elementary age kids, and starting there, because these are the future voices. And I know for me growing up, and that childhood trauma sneaking back in as an adult, that started to really take a toll. And so being able to get it to be there at that age, I would have benefited so much from that. And so everything we're all in, it's all being in the building phase, and so we have a lot of educators and parents, caregivers, clinicians, throughout all of the pieces that we're building. And there's a lot of excitement, and it's taken me everything not to jump out of my chair right now, because I get so excited when I get to talk about the work that we're doing and building behind the scenes. But yeah.
Wow. And taking your lived experiences, your trauma, your pain, and then morphing that into this opportunity and this beautiful offering for children to hopefully ease and help them, right? So
100%.
This is great. It's like a full circle moment, really.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, going back to your childhood a little bit, you've talked very openly about your mom and how her mental health shaped you. And now you're building something for kids. So how do you think about breaking cycles, not just surviving what you went through, but actively building something so the next generation has the tools that you didn't?
Well, I think actively building something like this, I think every day I'm in it, and I'm building, or like, working on something, whatever it might be. There's always that thought of home life just circulating in my head. Mom, an instance of where my mom and I had a really great moment. So what took place during that moment, and what made it so great? And then a really bad moment. What made it so bad? How did I feel? How did my mom feel? Or I thought, and being able to kind of start using that as a way to, that being part of the way to build the thing and to inspire the thing, but also being able to pull in and collaborate with some amazing, brilliant people and kids to build, all of these things within this, I call it an ecosystem kind of thing, to build on that, to make it make it better, because I've heard more times than not from the adults that step in that this is something they wish, one of these things or all of these things are something they wish they had as a kid, because it was so stigmatized in the 80s, 90s, like, as you know, I'm sure, like doctors would tell my parents when I would go, they would be, oh, it's just a phase, he'll grow out of it. Like, don't even worry about it. And that became the thing. It's just a phase. And so I think the work that you're doing with Stigma-Free, that's it. I mean, tearing down that shame around it, and just being open, listening, being vocal about it, is everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I totally agree with you. And I know what you mean about stigma, especially in the 1980s. Like, my mother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was very young, and the ambulance would come and have to take my mom to the hospital because she was having an episode. And then the neighbors knew because the ambulance would have those big lights. And it was just very difficult as a child to really understand. And I know what you mean, like removing that stigma. We have a lot of work to do. And the work that you're doing really helps young people understand that it's okay to have challenges. You know what? It's okay. So,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So closing off with our last question, for someone listening right now who recognizes themselves perhaps in your story, perhaps as well a professional running on fumes, or someone who's just starting to admit maybe they're not okay, what would you tell them?
I think this is going to sound really hard to do, but I think that ultimately it goes back to play, but it goes back to just, we have to find time to slow down. We have to. I know it sounds impossible. You think about it, the founder that is just in it every day, the parent who's just in it every day, the educator who's just exhausted and not getting paid enough to do that work. I get it. It's not ideal. But we have to make time, I think, or else we're going to be defined by it. And that's not the kind of life that I want to live. That's not the kind of life I don't think most people want to live. And it's something that, like, when I do one-on-one work or speak to a room full of business owners or founders, when we're done, I'll have people come up to me and be like, how can we work together? And I'll start talking through it. And it's like, what's your price for something like that? And I'll tell them. And sometimes they're like, oh, well, I can't afford that. And it's like looking through and digging into where they're at financially, operationally, wherever. It's like, well, you can't afford not to do that. And that's the same thing, is that we have to slow down. We have to take time to slow down because we can't afford not to do that. I'm certain that when we're on our deathbeds, we're not going to look at the people that are surrounding us, our loved ones and our friends, and say, God, I wish I worked more. I wish I finished that spreadsheet, or I wish I stayed late, or I wish I did this or that. And so whatever that might be, and however we can do that, we just have to find time to step back for a moment and evaluate that landscape and just pause for a minute. I think doing that day, I do that 5 minutes a day is what I do. And I just started doing that last year, and that changed everything for me. Just being able to step back and pause for just 5 minutes. And so I think that's the way, is just to slow down a little bit.
Yeah. And and it's different. Yes. And be present. And there's so many different ways that people can do that. Like for myself, in between working and stuff, I'll go in my beautiful backyard and play with my dogs. And for me, that is my play, right? And there's other things I do too. And talking about investment in ourselves, I get what you're saying. Like, I could go on this big shopping spree and spend like $500, or maybe I could invest that money in myself, something to help my mental health or be therapeutic or whichever, right? So I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there a place where people can find out more about you or the work you're doing? And is there anything at all you want to share in that regard?
Sure. Yeah, I am. I try to be on LinkedIn often. I'm on there writing, and a lot of the information is there. You can cavehouseupply.com is the kids brand, and then adamtanaka.com is the hub, I guess, that you can kind of read through. Yeah, social media, it's at Adam Tanaka. So any of those places, yeah, I'm there.
Amazing. Well, stay on the line, Adam. I'd love to connect with you further and have more conversations about how we can partner and collaborate with each other, because I'm super inspired by you. And I thank you today for your vulnerability, honesty, and definitely for just showing up here. So thank you.
Andrea, I'm super grateful. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. If you're watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or you've come across it on YouTube, please do share after the fact as well. And feel free to visit Stigma-Free Society, Stigma-Free Mental Health Society.com. Stigma-Free Society was our former name, and it still sticks in my brain. It was with us for 8 years. So bringing more definition to our work, Stigma-Free Mental Health. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Live stigma-free, and let's forge ahead with enthusiasm and positivity. Thank you, and take care.